we're live now, so
okay, cool.
Because obviously sleeping affects a lot of things. Affects cognition, affects short-term memory, affects like your immune system, your health. It definitely affects irritability and mood.
Oh yeah, 100%, man. I'm totally there with you.
Yeah, so then of course I'm not saying you, but like I get some atheists like, oh well, you're not a real Christian, you're a fake Christian because you're cussing now. I'm like, well, okay, I mean, this is just, it's like if, for example, I remember, have you heard of Paul Washer?
I'm listening to you. Go on.
Okay. Have you heard of Paul Washer? Anyways, he said, if you take a picture of me, and he doesn't like cats. He said, if you caught me like kicking a cat, and you took a picture of that and posted on the newspapers, all of a sudden, everyone, Paul Washer hates cats. Paul Washer's a cat killer. But I mean, yeah, you can understand that I'm using this analogously, though, right?
Yeah, no, I got you.
Yeah. So I just don't understand. And the thing is, like, it's like people who say that, like, well, you're not really self-aware, because I'm sure if I took snap pictures of you at certain parts in your life too, you wouldn't want that to be displayed. So
no,
it's like, yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, like I said, like regardless of our ideologies, we're all human. We all fuck up.
Oh, 100%, 100%.
Yeah, exactly.
We're all human beings. We have to treat each other with that universal dignity and respect, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's what I mean. One of my pastor mentors said, regardless of our ideology, we're all human. We all have shit we got to struggle with and go through, and we all and we can. And the thing is too is like I when I worked in Toronto, like I worked with pretty much every worldview under the sun, because like Toronto's I don't know if you know this, but Toronto's like a melting pot for immigrants and ideology.
So I've heard, yeah. I've never been to the Great White North there, so I don't really.
Speaking of White North, did you actually know that there's parts of California that are more north than some parts of southern Ontario?
California?
There's parts, if you take the northern parts of northern California, you go straight across take a ruler and go straight across the map. There are some parts of California that are actually more north than parts of Ontario.
Oh, sure. Sorry, I'm thinking of British
Columbia. Yeah.
My bad.
Longitude, latitude. Yeah. Usually, when you tell it to people, it's like,
yeah. Well, yeah. They're not thinking of the lakes, man.
Yeah. It's kind of funny though.
It is.
Because like I don't know. Remember when I was? This is kind of funny. Obviously you know where Michigan is. So yeah. when I was a kid, when I was 12 years old, and my church has a program called Cadets. It's kind of like Boy Scouts, but for like religious folk.
Sure.
So when I was 12, there we had what was called an international camporee. So it means all the people from my denomination in North America got together in Kalamazoo, Michigan, which is like, I have no idea where the hell Kalamazoo. I just know it's in Michigan, and that's it. And I know it's remote. I have no idea what city it's close to, but anyways. So the thing is, like, we're playing on these Canadian stereotypes because every kid is ignorant. Let's just be honest. So like one of the guys a year older than me and Canadian said he convinced a couple of American guys that he wrestled the polar bears in his backyard.
Okay, dude.
I know.
Wow. Talk about a tall tale.
Yeah, no kidding. The thing is, really, I said we were making bets on it, and like, you guys have UFC, we have UFK or UFB, something like that. Yeah.
That's crazy. But it goes to show how much the average American, and I find it really funny. I watch a lot of JJ McCullough. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. But just how unfamiliar most Americans are with Canada and Canadian culture.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, the thing is, to be honest, most Canadians know more about your country than ours.
Yeah, it's especially weird.
Because the thing is, like, politics in the States is so sensational. It's like watching a...
Yeah, it's like a circus act.
It's like almost like Jerry Springer for politics.
Yeah, right? Yeah, no, it honestly is. And it's a shame.
But the thing is, like, and our politics is like... And now we're gonna talk about the no smoking policy in the bathroom.
We just can't get people. I would say that Pierre Poilievre has been really spicy in the Parliament recently. Pierre
Poilievre. But I'm just generally speaking, like your politics are way more sensational.
Oh, for sure. I mean, but that's the media establishment. That's just.
But I don't know if you ever heard, but are you familiar with Rick Mercer?
No.
Okay. Anyways, he's a Canadian comedian, and for a year he started out with the show. This all to show how this it was called This Hour is 22 Minutes, which is self-explanatory.
Mm-hmm.
There's 22 minutes of the program for the whole hour,
sure.
And then he did a split on his own. A segment of that show was called Talking to Americans, and he would just go all over the country and ask the most insane questions. Like he's like, no one's gonna believe this. It's like one of the questions, like, did you hear that they just legalized staples in Canada?
What?
And they'd be like getting university president. Congratulations, Canada, on legalizing staples.
That's pretty funny, man.
I know, right? I was like, do you know how many states Canada has? It's
8 provinces and 3 territories, right?
That's right. Actually, remember one time Rick was asking a lady, do you know how many states Canada has? And then her little daughter, wait a minute, Canada has provinces.
Oh man, at least they're teaching kids something nowadays, right?
Yeah. So it's like it was just like I would have the thing is about me for me doing that initially, like I would just have a hard time keeping a straight face with that kind of shit, right? Like legalizing staples. So so what do you think about the war in Alberta? Oh, I'm in favor of it.
They're just uninformed. They don't want to look stupid on camera, so they say what sounds reasonable, right? Where are you? What is
the thing is like? But the thing is, in English, just say like if I don't know about something, like I don't know.
What are you right now? What is this setup that you've got? You're standing in
I'm funny you should ask. I'm actually in a bank ATM.
What the fuck are you doing at a bank, dude? What time is it over there?
Hold on. I don't mean, I don't want to get into the whole thing of it, but like because of my own proclivities and temptations in the past, I just chose not to have Wi-Fi at my own place.
Oh,
and I'm only like a 2-minute walk from here, so
that's fair. I mean, as long as you're like I wouldn't be out that dark where I'm at.
Yeah, well, I mean, I live in the most like rural, like one of the most quietest towns in Canada. It's Dundas, which is just outside of Hamilton. Like nothing happens here.
Oh shit! I mean, that's fair.
Yeah. The only thing about Dundas is the kids are just so bored they just do stupid shit. But that's what kids do, right? Kids have nothing to do. They usually get up and. I mean, some 17-year-old kid wanted to throw down with me on last Thursday, but
yeah, I mean. I don't know why you're even giving them the time of day, man.
I'm not. I don't know. Like even like recently, like kids are like seeking it. I'm not even looking for like, like I could be like, for example, doing this, and like somebody will walk in and like,
sorry.
Yeah, it feels kind of weird because it's like I'm like set up with like a webcam, a laptop, and an ATM machines, but I'm not doing anything sketchy or legal or unethical. All I'm doing is using their Wi-Fi, which is totally legal.
You never responded to the last thing I sent you over Twitter.
What did I swear? I was doing a lot of shit today. What was?
No, you're fine. Let me double check what my last response to your. Oh yeah, so you were telling me that my claim, or rather my position, that the moral compass is an internal tool was circular, and I essentially that kids aren't born, like humans aren't born with a moral sense, right?
I think kids are born with a moral sense, and I think I said something to the fact that it is developed. But it's both developed and created. I think that's where I was trying to go with that.
Created in what sense?
Like I believe that God creates us with His moral. Like God, like I'm going to say this. So God is perfectly moral, and we have a sense of morality because God creates us with that sense of morality. But that gets developed as we grow and develop and become adults.
So how would we test this? If we let's presume that we could do this ethically, right? Because I don't think that any ethics board would let us do this. But presume that we had a child that existed, right?
Okay.
Uncontacted by the rest of humanity, right?
Sure.
We wait 20 years for that child to grow up in complete isolation. Would you expect that child to have a moral sense of any kind?
Yep, I would.
Interesting. So
there are things I believe that people can know without having any exposure to the outside world.
So what are those things then?
Like, I believe that intuitively you would just know, even if you've never had contact with a human being before, that it's wrong to kill someone, or that it's wrong to hurt them without provocation.
What would give you that impression if you had never participated in a society? Instinct. What is the mechanism? Instinct?
It's total instinct. You have
so
that.
When you say instinct, you're referring to humans as like a natural animal, right?
No, I'm not just referring as a natural animal. Just like, well, every creature has instincts.
Okay, so that's like the animal part of the brain, though, right? That's not the advanced social part of the brain that we're talking about.
No,
like
no.
The base state
morals get developed. Morals and gets developed more obviously more strongly with socialization.
Sure. But the instinct portion, where is that coming from? Is that coming from man as an animal?
I believe that's created, and I think that even in isolation, you can develop a sense of ethos without a contact with the outside world.
Well, I guess that makes sense from your point of view, because you think humans are like separate from animals, right? That we're some sort of
I totally believe it's separate. I totally believe it's a human. I don't believe humans are animals.
Interesting.
I believe we can act like animals, but I don't believe we are animals.
Well, that I'll agree with you on. Yeah, we definitely can act like animals sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
I find that fascinating.
And I think, Kim, that this is an attack on my position, not an attack on you. But I think your position, that is Darwinian atheism, is.
I would object to that. That's not. You can't.
No. Here, let me finish. Let me finish the sentence. I think your worldview opens a door for it.
Opens a door for what?
Animalistic behavior.
Animalistic behavior. In what sense?
I think that if you kick God out of the equation, so to speak, you open the door for just about any kind of anything in terms of conduct. I mean, look at our world today. We're living in a clown world. Like, people believe that they can be the opposite gender. That's not reality.
Well, that's a separate conversation. So,
it's a separate conversation. My point is, is back to my original point, which is that worldview opens the door for all kinds of bad stuff. That's all I'm saying with that. I think it opens the door for it.
I mean, I guess if you're from your perspective, right? Because you believe that morality is like an objective thing that exists outside of humans, right?
Yeah. So
I guess you define immorality as that which goes against what you believe God wants, right? So,
well, not what God wants, but God is the standard of morality, I believe.
Sure. But like, what goes against God is immoral fundamentally to you, right?
Yeah, but what goes against God?
There is nothing that one can do against God that would be even like outside of the concept of morality.
Yeah, but the thing is, there's interconnection between that morality and what we do with ourselves. Like, for example, the 10 Commandments are a baseline to God, but they're also a violation. At least half of them are a violation against people.
In what sense?
Well, I mean, half the commandments deal with human behavior. Don't commit adultery. That's human behavior. Don't lie. That's human behavior.
But you label those as violations. What part of that is a violation?
Trust. They violate trust.
Violate trusts. It violates the trust of humanity towards God?
Toward each other and towards both. It breaks the horizontal and the vertical bonds of trust.
The commandments themselves existing breaks that trust.
No. The commandments exist as proclivities or boundaries for healthy relationships. That's the point of the commandments. They're for our own good. It's like, you can think. Let me put it this way: we can think of the commandments as gatekeeping from fun, or we can think of the commandments as gatekeeping from self-destructive behavior.
Sure. But what I'm getting at, right, is that you fundamentally, anything that goes against God is categorically immoral, right? That which is moral is what goes against God, and that which goes against God is immoral, right?
That would be fair.
So there's nothing in your mind that a person could do that goes against God that isn't immoral, or that God isn't concerned about. Everything that a human being can do is either moral or immoral, right?
Yeah, but I think it can be dicey because obviously there's categories too, right? Like even in morality, there's still a hierarchy of a top-down system value.
Sure, but I mean the objective.
But on the face of it, yeah. But on the face of it, I agree with your analysis.
Okay, see, because from where I stand, right, I care about relationships and interactions between human beings, right? Well, no, your system deals directly, but as interactions between humans and God, right?
Yeah.
Everything that we do to each other is also something that is being done to or for God, essentially.
In a roundabout way,
because everything either conforms or doesn't conform with God's standard, if we want to call it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
So I'm not concerned with that relationship. I'm concerned with the horizontal of like individual ethical actors in any given social interaction, right? So there are definitely things from my point of view that don't lie within morality. There are things that are amoral, as in they exist outside because they don't concern that relationship.
Okay, right? So what would you consider amoral?
Without getting into anything extreme, like
well, if it's extreme, it's probably not immoral.
To be general and to give you a good example of what I mean by this, animal cruelty.
I mean, animal cruelty between itself or ours to them?
No. An individual with a lawfully owned animal, right? The animal is a piece of property that this person owns. What you do to that doesn't concern any other people. It doesn't hurt anybody else. So I don't really have a moral position on it. I don't like it personally, right? I think it's icky to do mean things to animals.
I think it's evil. I think animal cruelty is evil.
Sure, absolutely. And I agree with you, but it's not.
I think people who commit animal cruelty should be locked up.
I would be okay.
I mean, not necessarily for a long period of time.
I'm not against.
I think it warrants some jail time.
It's just to me it's a matter of personal like preference, right? Are you like personally okay with people doing shit to their own property? Because if you're not okay with animal cruelty,
I think when part of your property includes a living creature, I think that's a little bit different.
Well, I'm only concerned with human interactions, right? All of the rest of nature is either unowned or owned property.
So you're only concerned with human interaction. You're ambivalent
for morality, for moral purposes.
Okay, so that's what I mean. So for morality purposes, you're ambivalent about how humans treat the rest of the world.
Yeah, I'm ambivalent. It lies outside the scope of morality for me. All of nature is property, either owned or unowned, right? I don't think we should do like wanton, unnecessary damage to the environment, right? But the environment itself is not a moral actor. It cannot be like aggressed upon.
No, I mean the
animals don't have rights.
Natural world itself can't be moral because the natural world doesn't have. In order to be moral, you have to have a mind, will, and desires.
Yeah, you have to have sapience, agency. You have to be able to like
exactly. Yeah. So in order to be a moral creature, you have to have a mind, will, and emotions.
Right. I mean, we can define it that way. I was
going to say the only creatures on this planet that can be moral are humans.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Because an animal kills an animal, no one gives a shit. But a human kills a human, that's different.
Yeah, that is different, right? Because the human life has a fundamental like value. We all agree that it has value, right? And so by fiat, it does.
I'm looking forward to June 3rd, man.
Dude, honestly, I've been doing a lot of like studying.
Nice.
I'm trying to prepare myself as much as possible.
Good. Well, I mean,
Um,
there's two reasons I wanted to do at least June. One is like I'm doing two. I think you know I'm
oh
doing two
yeah,
debates.
no,
And
the
that's right. You
scheduling
said
isn't
yeah.
a problem for me.
You saw my debate
Yeah,
promo video.
yeah,
And the other thing is I got two martial arts tournaments, and one in May and one in June as well. So I'm like,
yeah.
I learned my lesson in January by not like killing myself. My God, I think the thing is, Kim, is like this is like I've never done live debates before this year, so
Yeah.
it's like I had no idea how much they wear you.
I did debate through my educational career, like as a sort of official event
Oh,
thing.
and a modern day debate. They're just going to say quickly is doing a debate with London. What's his name? I can't remember handle off the top of my head. London Storm or something like that.
Okay.
He's going to debate me on whether or not God exists through the modern day debate channel. So I'm getting some traction.
Okay. Okay. I mean, hey man,
Yeah.
I'm here for it. I just wish you were less of a weasel with your arguments. That's
You
that's the one thing I have a problem, and I'm saying this respectfully, man, as a fellow human being, right? I'm not
yeah,
attacking you personally. You have really
yeah.
bad argumentation, man. Like your points, I've watched a lot of your content, a lot of the videos that you make, and it's all pretty bad, man.
So what?
I said it's all pretty bad. Like
Oh,
the arguments are all very. I see why you arrive at these conclusions, right? I understand.
yeah,
I've spoken
the
with a
thing
lot
is,
of
like,
religious people in
your
my time.
opinion about my content means this to me.
No. It's not about the content. It's about like
Oh yeah,
the structure of your arguments, right? Because I know you're making claims, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't be
yeah.
pursuing
The
what
thing
you
is true.
want
It's
to
like
do,
the thing is too is like
right? I'm
a
looking at this
YouTube
from an
channel. Like
intellectual point of view. I'm not
the
looking
thing
at
is
this
too is like
as a person.
I mean, and I know this may sound weird, but on my YouTube channel, what I'm trying to do is for as bad as it may sound. On my own YouTube channel, what I'm trying to do is engagement farming. I'm trying to
No,
elicit.
that's fair.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to elicit response so I can flesh it. Like and that's why I want to do. I want to do debates because it's like, well, I'd rather talk to another person than
Right. Talking to the camera is a lot harder than talking to another person. No, I get that.
exactly.
Yeah. My problem is, of course, I understand how you arrive at these positions and why you believe
And
what
I
you believe.
understand how you arrive at yours. So
Yeah. My thing is that when you make attempts to defend these positions and then you attack the positions of what you see as your opposition, right?
right.
The way that you do this is really sketchy, man. Your claims about you. I think I've heard you say the word circular argument more than anyone else on the internet, man. And I'm starting to think that you don't know what circular arguments
Yes,
are.
I do. I do what it means. It means reading or assuming the conclusion from the premise.
Well, sure, in its simplest form, yeah, it's begging
Yeah.
the
So
question,
it's
right?
like
But
saying
the other, but
it would be like me saying macroevolution is true because I believe macroevolution is true. Therefore, macroevolution is true. That's circular reason.
yes, in its simplest form, you're begging the question. I mean,
Exactly.
in a
So
really like that's a poor example because that's not often
I mean,
how begging the
I know
question
that like
like
I know
appears,
that no
right?
one talks like that on Twitter or any other
Sure.
platform, but like I do see circular a lot. I mean, could I be wrong? Of course, but I mean, it's like the thing is like
Are
you.
you willing to be
I
wrong?
also see a lot. I'm not saying you, but I see a lot of you're a pretty chill atheist. I mean, and I've actually started to meet more chill atheists, which
Yeah.
is cool. And then
I really
I just did a
dislike
show with
the
I just did a
militant
live with
attitude that exists, by the way. I don't like militant atheists. I went through
yeah
that phase and that's
yeah.
not a
So
fun place to be at.
yeah, so I think like Aaron is a bit militant, massive adult. Actually, Aaron's
No,
a whole
Aron's
lot.
just been around the block too many times. He just doesn't have time for
Well, the thing
like
is too is you got to work. It goes both ways, right? Like like myself, like we've heard a lot of the same things. Like I think that's the thing. I think we're just all hearing the same echo chamber, right?
I just think the arguments haven't changed. I think
Well, the thing is, I don't
this
think they.
started, the
I don't think
positions
they
haven't really
necessarily.
changed.
The thing is too is like I do see a lot of like bad faith atheists. I think bad faith, whatever ideology, just gives your own
Oh
ideology.
yeah, no, I mean Yeah, if you're going to argue in good faith. There's no reason.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was another thing. The position that you hold. I know that you hold this sort of officially as a Christian because that's what the Bible teaches. But the idea
the thing is, I don't only believe things because the Bible says things.
Well, no. I mean that as a you hold this belief as a necessary component of your faith, right? The belief that atheists don't actually exist, right? Well, that I actually secretly know that God exists.
I guess on the face of it, yeah, because in Romans 1, it says pretty much everybody knows that God exists, but deny him.
Right. And so like holding that position officially is arguing in bad faith because you're not taking my position at face value.
Well, the thing is,
saying, you don't actually believe this. The king has no clothes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the thing is, I think that's a bit of what do you call a double entendre in the sense that the Bible doesn't believe that people truly in their core believe that there is no God.
Then why would it say that?
Pardon?
Why would it say that if it didn't actually believe that?
No, but the thing is, the Bible talks about in the same chapter. It talks about people who suppress truth. In other words, it's kind of like I'm
gonna pull up this chapter. Hold on. This is Romans 1. What now?
I don't know off the top of my head. Just in the chat. It's not a long chapter.
Romans. Okay, hold on.
When Paul talks about those who suppress the truth in righteousness, but Paul elsewhere, I don't remember off the top of my head, but talks about those who have consciences, those who have as though they've been seared with a hot iron. So basically, I think Paul's argument is that atheism is basically the dumbing down of conscience over time.
Okay, here we go. So
I'm going to paraphrase.
1:18, the wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of the people who suppress the truth by their wickedness.
Yeah.
Since what may be known about God is plain to them because God has made it plain to them.
Yeah.
That last bit, because God has made it plain to them. I take objection to that. I would not agree that even if I grant that the God that you worship, right, exists in a tangible physical sense.
Sure.
I would not agree that he has made this fact plain to me. Or to anyone for that matter. Plain is a very specific.
It basically means he's made it obvious to all that he's real and alive.
Right, but I would disagree that that's the case. I would disagree that he has made it obvious. And I think a lot of people on Earth would disagree that he's made it obvious.
Yeah, but our disagreement doesn't make it true.
What do you mean?
Because we disagree with something, like say, for example, if you disagree with me that I'm wearing a brown sweater, that doesn't make it true because I can see that I'm wearing a brown sweater.
I mean, yeah, but why would God allow for that disagreement to happen?
Why
wouldn't God make it clear to everyone? That's what I mean.
I think there's a simple answer and a complex answer. I think the simple answer is like humans, God desires relationship. But like humans, God allows the relationship to exist or not to exist. Like it's not coerced, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
God wants
an interesting point. That's an interesting point.
God wants people to pursue him, and the Bible makes that clear too.
So he gives us the free choice to not pursue him, though.
Absolutely.
And so what happens to people who don't pursue him just out of their own personal preference? They just decide
that differs too because there are people who are moral agents everyone's a moral agent. Sure. But you can live a moral life without God in it. But everyone's proclivities and temptations.
But if denying God by itself is some sort of serious offense, right?
To God it is, yeah.
Right. So then there is no free choice, right? Because
I think that's
either I take what I'm told, or I do what I'm told, or I'm punished. That's not a free choice.
So let me give you an analogy.
Sure, I'm listening.
Okay, so if I'm in a relationship with a woman and she wants me to take the garbage out or do something for her, but say forget, and then she won't go for dinner with me because I forgot. Now, is the consequence of the action mean I didn't have the choice, or does it mean there's consequences for our choices?
Okay, but there's a distinct difference here, right? There's the natural.
I'm not disputing there's a difference, but I'm just using it as an equivocation.
Sure, but I don't think it's a fair equivocation.
Okay, fair enough.
Because the difference here is we're talking about natural consequences, right? People reacting to their environment as it changes, and then like explicitly punishing someone for making a decision.
Okay,
right. So there are artificial, like imposed consequences. I'm going to do this to you.
Yeah.
And there are the natural consequences of, well, you didn't do this thing for me, so I no longer feel valued in this relationship.
No, actually, I have a good. Actually, I don't know if have you ever heard of Todd Friel?
No.
Anyway, so he gave this kind of like a hierarchy of values system for punishment that sets up, I think, a good case for God's morality and why we should think it's fair. Okay, for example, he asked questions. He said, if I lied to my dog, what's going to happen? Nothing. If I lied to my daughter, what's going to happen? Nothing. If I lied to my wife, what's going to happen? I sleep in the doghouse. If I lie in court, what's going to happen? I go to jail. See, so what you see is an increase of authority as it goes up the hierarchy of authority and power. And God being at the top, the consequences for what we do against the nature and person of God are that much more serious than what we see. I think the problem for us, Ken, is that we equate justice, human justice, with God's justice, but we can't do that because God is so much more powerful and authoritative than us that we have to separate.
Well, I'm not even talking about justice yet, right?
Okay, no,
that's a further problem down the road.
Okay. Well, I'm more or less
talking about the nature of this offer, right? The nature of this offer
but God's justice and punishment go hand in hand. That's why I'm talking about it.
Sure, but again, that's one step down the line, right? We're not at that point yet. I'm talking about the nature of this offer, right? Which is essentially coercive, because there is no free option. There is no situation in which I can say, listen, man, I don't really want to be a part of this system that you've created.
Well, I think you're confusing. It's an ultimatum is not still gives you a choice. It's just not
if there's a threat of force attached to one of the two available options. That's not a choice. And there is a threat of force at the end.
So right now, do we have a choice in this conversation?
Yeah, essentially, because we are on equal footing as moral agents, right?
Yeah,
we're
not on equal footing with God.
Consenting to this interaction, but I did not consent to the interaction between me and God.
Well, okay,
no, I mean, but seriously, that's the fundamental difference here, is that I did not consent to that.
Well,
and so anything that God does for me is ultimately an imposition because I did not ask for it. I did not consent to it. I signed contracts.
Did you consent to your parents having sex and conceiving
you?
Did you
absolutely
consent?
Not.
So I'm just saying there's a whole bunch of things we don't consent to that happen. Like,
yes,
and they're all bad. Pathetic argument is what I'm trying to say.
No. Hold on. Right? Because in your world, right, in your reality, if we apply this consent standard, that's a problem. In my reality, it isn't. Right?
But I'm just saying
because we're talking about individuals that can be held accountable here. You and I can hold each other accountable. I can't hold God accountable.
I'm just saying the consent argument for God is probably not a one you want to have, Kevin.
Well, I'm having it.
Okay.
Does God need
Here's the thing: does God need your consent and my consent to do anything?
I would say yes. If it involves me as a moral, as an entity that exists, anytime I do anything to you, it ought to be consensual, right? Anytime you do anything to another person, it ought to be consensual. Okay, let's apply this standard that we apply to everyone.
Okay, let me use this analogy. If I create this cell phone, does this? Let's say hypothetically, the cell phone was
sapient,
alive. Being. Let's say if I was able to make a human being.
Yes.
Do I need, as the creator of that human being, to ask my own creation what I want to do?
Yeah. Well, what you want to do with them, yes. If it concerns them and their autonomy.
So let me get this straight. I'm the programmer, but I have to consent to the consent of my creation.
Hold on. You don't consent to other people's consent, man. That's not how that works, right?
Okay, then maybe
when
I'm misunderstanding something then.
Okay,
I think it's at the height of hubris to think that God needs our consent about anything.
I think it's the height of arrogance to assume that anyone doesn't need consent to act upon other entities.
Okay.
The idea that no, seriously, the idea, right, that just because you create something that is alive and sentient and sapient and autonomous, that you have a sovereign right over that thing, that seems really sketchy to me, right? Do you have that sovereign right over your children? Because you created them. Are you allowed to domineer their lives, to create, to do whatever they? So why does God have that right with us? Are we not God's children?
But the thing is, God is actually granting you what you want. He's saying,
I didn't want
you don't want me in my life, but you don't have to have me in my life. So he's granting you the very thing.
But as a punishment, as a corollary to that decision, I am punished with eternal hellfire.
Okay.
I mean, unless you don't believe in that version of hell, in which case I can change my argument, right?
Sorry, I missed something over the fan here.
So do you believe in a literal hell?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and what does that hell look like to you? Is it fire and brimstone, or is it just a permanent disconnection?
I think the Bible uses metaphors like it could be fire and brimstone, and it could also be it could be a lake of fire. It could be a lot of things. But the thing about hell that's most prominent is hell is where the absence of God is. There's no life. There's no revelation. It's just eternal conscious torment.
Okay. But is that the place where people who decline God's offer go when they die?
According to the Bible, yeah.
According to you, what do you personally?
According to the Bible, I agree with the Bible. That's what the Bible says.
Okay, that's what the Bible says.
Yeah.
And you don't see a problem with that.
I don't.
You don't see a problem with that offer being given. And
because we have the choice to choose God.
But if you're being threatened with eternal torment, is it really a choice?
Yeah, we all deserve torment. So I think that the fact that we have the option of grace is like, well, he's throwing us a lifeline. You want to grab it or not? It's up to you.
Why do we deserve eternal torment?
Because we've violated God's perfect moral law.
By doing, what do you mean we? Who is we?
The entire human species.
What did the entire human species do collectively that pissed off God that bad?
Any type of sin. Any sin. Well, it could be lying, stealing, adultery. Yeah, the Ten Commandments. Go to the Ten Commandments. Any one of those things in God's eyes is worthy of eternal death.
Okay. Would you agree that God creates humans as they are?
Yes and no.
Explain.
Well, God created us perfectly, and we chose to give God the finger, and now we're paying the price. So we live with created value as creations of God, but we're also living with a sin nature. It's dual. We're living with dual natures.
Okay, but all of that is a product of God's creation, right? Hold on, this should not. This is the wrong orientation. All of that is a product of God's creation, though, right? Like
God created us perfectly moral and gave us free agency.
Okay, so then where does the sin come from?
Us choosing to rebel against God's standard. Flipping God off.
Why would God give us the ability to flip him off?
Because he wanted relationship, not robotic autonomy.
Why? That seems like an inferior choice.
Well,
it seems like an inferior choice to create things that have the ability to hate you.
Well, I mean, think of it this way: if I'm in a relationship with someone, the only way I can be faithful is I have the option to be unfaithful, right? The only way I can love is at the option of hate. The only way I can give myself sacrificially is if I have the option to be selfish. And the same works with us and God. The only way we can have a relationship with God is to have the option to not have a relationship with God.
Okay, but we don't have that option.
We do.
No, we don't. We are coerced into having that relationship.
Well, if it was a coercion, everyone would be having it.
how isn't it a coercion? I mean, we're just back at the same problem, right?
Well, I think you're conflating coercion with ultimatum.
An ultimatum is a kind of coercion. It's a threat. In like just explicitly, it's a threat. I will do this to you if you do not conform to this standard.
But he didn't. He made a way. So I don't know. I don't. For me, this is a non-issue because maybe just because maybe my upbringing, my background, whatever. But for me, it's a non-issue because I believe that we all deserve eternal torment anyways, and God was gracious enough to give us a lifeline. So my sense of that is choose the lifeline. You don't have to worry about it.
Okay. Let's go back to the sin issue.
To what?
To the issue of sin, right?
Sure.
Because you said it comes from the original rebellion, which I believe.
Yeah. So basically, now every creature since Adam and Eve to the present, with the notable exception of Christ, has been born with a sin nature.
Okay. Now, I mean, sin entered into the world, right?
Right.
That's the verbiage that
that's Genesis uses. Yeah.
Where did sin exist before this?
In the person of Satan and his minions.
Of Satan. Okay.
Yeah.
Where did he come from?
He was created by God. He was God's number one angel before he got kicked out of heaven.
Okay. Are angels autonomous? Do they have free will?
I don't know that. I do not know.
It's my interpretation, right, from the scholarly literature that I have read, that Christianity does not consider angels to be autonomous beings.
No,
they don't have free will, and that's what. Oh. Uh-oh. Have we lost Rob? What the hell? What the hell just happened?
Sorry about that.
Oh, he's back. There you are.
I closed one too many tabs.
Whoops. Sorry. What was the last thing you heard?
Something.
I was explaining that I don't think that Christianity considers angels to be autonomous.
You're right. Yeah, I think you're right. I think angels are considered like have no choice.
They're like celestial automaton, right?
Exactly.
Like
so what the Bible considers angels are basically messengers of God.
Sure.
Do God's bidding, but yeah, as to whether or not they have free choice, I doubt it.
I mean, celestial creations, things of the kingdom of heaven, right? Not of this earth. So I mean, Satan before the fall was one of these things, right?
But obviously, Satan made a choice. So it's.
Well, did he? He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to have made a choice. That would just mean that God created him knowing that he would rebel.
That's true.
And that adds more questions to the pile of like, what is it that God is trying to achieve here? Because it seems like the system is set up in such a way that sin is like a necessary component.
I would say the rebellion has to be a choice, and that's where I would say for both the angels and the humans, it looks like God's given both creatures a choice. Now, I don't think that the angels who made their decisions can choose to alter them going forward after this point.
Okay, why free will? Out of all of the solutions to the worship problem, right, as I like to call it, the problem of like the willful relationship that God wants us to have with him, why is free will the solution that he chose? Because it seems to me that it's the worst solution.
Free will is not the solution. Free will is the vehicle by which relationship happens.
Is it the only vehicle?
I don't know of any other.
Just because you don't know of any other, does that mean that God wouldn't know of another?
No, but God knows everything. So
okay. So would you agree that there is probably a solution, right, that could have been in front of God that would not have required suffering as a necessary component?
Well, sure. Why not?
So why didn't God take that one?
Because again, I think God is interested in the relationship.
Well, if we can both agree that there is a method through which he could have achieved that relationship of the same quality without introducing suffering.
He could have just made us, as Dawkins said, moist robots.
Well, not necessarily, right? There's a myriad of different solutions that we can't imagine because we're not an infinitely knowledgeable God, right?
Right. Yeah.
But as long as he is an infinitely knowledgeable God, then necessarily a solution that did not require introducing suffering does exist. And he chose willfully to include suffering as a necessary component.
Suffering is a result of the sin. It's like
a solution where sin is even present, like the ability to experience suffering, the ability to sin, the ability to defy him, aren't necessary components of this question that he's trying to resolve, right? Because he's an infinitely powerful being. He could have created us with any myriad of
he did. His solution was his son.
I don't know that that's a solution.
I do. I can't think of a better one.
Again, this is a weird position to pivot from. Why is Jesus the solution? Why is it subjecting additional humans to additional cruelty on a much larger scale? I would say if we take the biblical interpretation literally, Jesus' suffering is
Jesus. Here's the thing: the Bible contends that because sin entered through a man, that sin has to be satisfied also in a man. But the second man has to be perfect and perfectly and morally perfect, because the only sacrifice that God can accept is moral perfection.
So then, what is Jesus?
He was the morally perfect God-man, both natures at once.
But Jesus is the one being sacrificed, or not his moral perfection.
No, he's being sacrificed because you and I and the rest of humanity screwed up.
Okay. And so how does Jesus solve the problem then?
By absorbing all of our sin, if we choose to put our trust in him, on him.
Why not just get rid of the whole thing?
You're
already there.
I already answered. I just answered the question like.
But then Jesus isn't getting rid of anything until we give it to him, right?
Yeah.
Why not?
Again, it's a relationship.
Why?
Choice. He wants a choice. He wants us to do it freely, willingly. He doesn't want to, ironically, coerce us.
So then, why the threat of hell?
Hell isn't a threat. Hell's a choice. It's saying God's giving you the choice.
Can I choose to not go to hell without having to go to heaven?
No, it's more about what do you want? Do you want God or do you want your own stick?
I want to exist outside of his system before I can make a choice.
You can't. You're doing that right now, are you not?
No, I exist in his system.
You exist in a world.
From your point of view, I certainly do, right? I am under God's jurisdiction. I wish to not be under God's jurisdiction.
You're under God's jurisdiction, but you don't have to abide by his laws.
I don't care about his laws. I don't want to be under his jurisdiction.
Okay. Well, that's too bad. I don't mean that facetiously.
No, I know you don't. I know you don't. But do you understand the problem there? That isn't a choice. That isn't an option that's okay. Well, you don't want to live under this system. Cool. Go fend for yourself somewhere else. Right? Is very different from, well, if you don't choose my way, you go to hell.
Right.
That's a very different proposition.
But hell, the face of it is simply here's the thing. Here's where I want to say about hell. Hell is not, God doesn't, in a sense, God sends people to hell, but people choose hell. What hell is essentially is the absence of God's power and presence. Now, if you don't want God in this life, let me finish the sentence. Okay. If you don't want God in this life, don't you think it would be cruel for God to force you into his presence in the next one?
Yeah, sure. But is hell not within God's domain? Actually,
hell was initially created for Satan and his angels, and God made an allowance for humans because humans also have the same. But so does hell exist
outside of God's influence then?
Pardon?
Does God have no power in hell? Is that what you're saying?
God isn't. God has no presence in hell, but God has power over hell. That's a bit dicey of a theological.
Okay, well, because the problem is that your God is omnipresent as well as being omniscient.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
so I mean,
God has all knowledge of what goes on in hell, but God's presence isn't in hell.
But he has dominion over hell, right?
Agreed,
he has
yes.
the power to affect change within hell.
For example, if I was a police officer in the city of Hamilton, I'm not, but just hypothetically, if I was,
sure,
I would have dominion over this entire city, but I can only be at one place. Honestly, it's not a great equivocation because I'm omnipresent like God.
Okay. So then my question to you is hell jail or is hell one town over?
Aha, that's a good question.
That is the fundamental question here. If hell is not a punishment,
hell is a punishment. It goes on forever.
And that's the problem. If it's a punishment,
the Christian
then
position
the offer is coercive.
Yeah, the Christian position is this: either you're under the grace of God and you've been imputed with Christ's righteousness, or you're under the law and you're dead in your sin.
Okay.
Because you can't keep the law. That's why Christ came, because we're moral law breakers. So Christ had to come to be that righteousness imputed to us.
Well,
so
I didn't agree to the law.
He gave us his righteousness.
I don't care about the law. I didn't agree to it.
Okay.
I'm not right.
But at some point we have to come to the conclusions that not everything we agree upon ultimately always matters either. I mean, it does and it doesn't.
What do you mean?
Well,
I think that consent matters.
For example, I can say, well, what if I don't agree with the fact that I don't like the way that my prime minister runs things sometimes, and oftentimes I don't.
Well, I don't either.
Okay, but I'm just saying my disagreement has no bearing on the reality of the situation.
I mean, you could leave. Ostensibly, right? I mean,
okay, but
financial conditions aside, right? Like if you don't want to be under, no, hold on.
You don't understand what I'm saying analogously, though.
No, I do. I also want to point out that this is a great analogy for my position as well. Is that the difference here is that if you don't like the way that your prime minister is running things in your country, ostensibly financial conditions aside, you can leave and choose a different system.
That's
right?
True.
Where the laws of Canada.
It would be very difficult for me to do that, but I could. Yeah, you're right.
Sure. But I mean, that option is present, and
I could live in the state if I really wanted to.
Sure.
I could make it.
You could move to Mexico or Aruba or fucking Kiribati if you want to. Who cares, right? But the thing is that Canada doesn't prosecute you for choosing to live elsewhere.
No, but Canada is actually making it really difficult to be a Christian nowadays.
Well, but that's not what I'm getting at, right? Like God does punish you for deciding that his way is not your way, right? It's not that Satan offers an alternative. It's that Satan wanted something different, and he was punished for wanting something different.
Satan wanted worship. That's ultimately Satan wanted. God.
What's so bad about worship?
Well, worship
gets it.
Worship is fine, but here's the thing: is like, let me put it this way: do you have any do you have any hobbies, side projects you do just for fun?
Yes, I'm not sure that you would find them.
Just tell me. I'm gonna use this.
Yeah. I build firearms. It's a hobby. Sure.
Okay, so let's say you build these firearms, and let's say you order you order parts from different manufacturers. You put them all together. Now let's say someone says, "I want the credit for it." How would you feel? Someone said they wanted the credit for all the work you did.
Indifferent.
Pardon?
I think I would be indifferent. It would be very silly for somebody to try to take the credit.
No, okay, maybe that's not exactly. Maybe, but the point is that's when we're talking about worshiping God, that basically Satan is wanting all the credit for all the things that God has done. And that's not a small thing, because for example. A better example is, let's say, like an artist. Like, for example, if you're an actor or a musician, and say you're writing songs, you're building you're producing an album, you're just pouring yourself into it, right? Sure. Let's say someone walks along and says and wants to put their name where yours belongs.
Sure.
That's not cool.
Are we sure that that's what Satan is doing?
That's what he's trying to do. Of course, that's precisely what Satan is trying to do. He's trying to take credit for things that God has done.
How do we know that? How do we know that?
He's trying to give God, he wants God to get the bad rap for all the things that God's not responsible for.
Sure. But how do we know that that's the case?
That's a good question. How do we know that that's the case?
How do we know that that's what Satan wants? We hear in the Bible.
Well, because
about what Satan did.
Because Jesus told us that's what he wants.
Where does he tell us that?
Right in John 10, verse 10, says the thief, it was a reference to Satan, comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. But I have come that you may have life and have it to the full.
Okay, is that what Jesus is saying that Satan wants, or is that Satan telling us what he wants?
That's Jesus telling us what Satan wants. And Satan's been very clear.
Why should we believe what Jesus said instead of what Satan says? Why not hear it from the horse's mouth?
Okay, well, Satan wanted Jesus to worship him. Satan said, all the keys of all the kingdoms are mine. So if you read the temptation in the wilderness, it's pretty indicative of what Satan wants.
I'm aware of the story, but that's not what I'm getting at, right? What I'm getting at is that we don't actually. Satan never speaks to us, right? Not in the Bible.
Well, he does.
Satan doesn't have his own Bible, right? Like he doesn't. What is his side of the story?
Pardon?
What is Satan's side of the story? Essentially, is what I'm asking.
Well, Satan wants all. Put it this way: everything that will destroy you is what Satan wants you to do to yourself. And others.
From the perspective of the Bible, sure, but I don't know that that's actually the case.
Okay.
Right. Because I don't hear anything from Satan's side. Satan never presents an argument to me. I never get to hear what he stands for. I don't get to hear what he wants. I get the Bible telling me what he wants, and that's the Bible's word against a non-existent agent. Right? Because Satan hasn't shown up to tell me what he actually wants.
See, my friend is blowing up my comment section.
Oh,
I just minimized my screen so I could see if that would go.
Oh, there's like a whole chat here. Oh man. Yeah. Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Oh, I was not aware of the chat. I'm so sorry, Mr. Child of God. I did not realize that you were in the chat. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Apparently, he thinks that Satan's having a field day with you.
I mean, sure. Demonstrate.
The thing is, like, here's the thing with Child of I can't see right now, but it's like,
right.
Even if that's true, it's not a helpful comment for this conversation.
No, I think it is. I think it speaks to the one-sided nature of this. No, that's fine. No worries, dude.
I'm not saying you're worried. I'm just saying, like
relationship, right?
Like, in order to build rapport with like atheists, like going gung ho about like you're a child of the devil, like to use like obviously what's it called hyperbolic rhetoric.
Yeah,
it's not helpful.
No, it isn't, but it's fine. It doesn't bother me. Yeah. My problem is that, like, because Satan is the adversary, right? Satan is the alternative.
Yes.
So he's not given an opportunity to construct that alternative before God tells you don't listen to him. He's stupid, and casts.
Well, Satan is not. I don't believe for a second that Satan's stupid. I think Satan is very clever. Way more clever than people.
Sure, but that's not what I mean, right?
Okay,
that option is.
I'm just responding to the rhetoric you're using. That's all.
Sure. Because when we say that Satan is this figure that like tempts, right? Tempts us with what exactly?
I think there's three things that tempt us. I think we're tempted by our own proclivities and desires. I think we're tempted by culture, and I think we're tempted by Satan. So I think all three of those things happen simultaneously.
But I mean, Satan's temptation specifically, to what finality, right? What is Satan trying to get that God doesn't want us to give to him?
There's two things. One is Satan wants destruction, and it says right that in John 10, verse 10. The other thing is Satan wants glory. Satan wants what he doesn't deserve. Satan is like the kid
Mm-hmm.
who watched like for example, now actually to say if I for a science fair and I had to build a model rocket. It's like Satan's like, oh, by the way, we did a good job, eh, guys? And they're like, and he did nothing. Everyone else did all the work. So he wants credit for things.
Do we know that to be the case, though? We're back. Do we know that to be the case, though?
Yeah, I do. I do know that to be the case.
Okay, because we never see Satan do that of his own accord. We hear the Bible tell us that he does that, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is, the Bible is other than hugely vague, ambiguous references in the Quran. The Bible is the only text that we have to go with that reveals the nature of Satan.
Doesn't that seem odd to you?
Yes,
that you don't get a complete picture of this conflict.
No, I think. Obviously, it'd be the Jewish Talmud too, but obviously, Jewish text is Judea. It's Judeo-Christian worldview. But
yeah, it's not the Torah is not that much different from.
No, that's true. That's true. That's
with the exception of the New Testament, right?
Right.
But same problem, right? That we don't get to hear his side of the story, and that doesn't strike you as odd that we don't hear a complete account of this conflict. Because I bet if I asked you what exactly the war in heaven was about and what it was specifically that Satan did, you wouldn't be able to tell me.
Well, I think the only thing the Bible really hints at is that Satan wanted God's position. He wanted to be worshipped. But he said, I will make myself above the Most High God.
Is that not essentially what God has done, though?
But God deserves it because God is God.
Sure, but I'm sure that if Satan was in God's position and had God's power, he would be doing the same thing, right?
Well, for sure, but that's pretty hypothetical.
Okay, and
so
the power of creation comes with the seat,
right?
So I'm sure if Satan could move himself into the seat, he would do just the same thing that God has done: is to create his own dominion and create what?
Why would you think that?
Because that's what you're telling me, is that's what he wants. He wants glory. He wants
power. He wants what he doesn't deserve. And he's a created being.
To deserve it is a value judgment. That's a matter of opinion.
Well, usually when we deserve things, it's because we've done something to deserve something.
Right, but Satan in that moment did not have the ability to do anything.
That's true.
Because it was not given to him.
Yeah, Satan has a lot more power than we do, but he's got a lot less power than.
But he doesn't have enough power to achieve what he wants, right?
No, of course not.
And
that's a good thing, by the way.
Let's assume that he did for a moment. Let's assume that he was able to achieve his goals in that moment.
That would be terrifying.
What would make it any different than what God is doing?
Because Satan doesn't want our best. God does. Satan wants to destroy us.
Okay, and
he wants us to
God has destroyed plenty of humans.
Doing a good job.
God has destroyed plenty of humans in the Bible. What is the difference?
But for different reasons. Judgment.
Reasons matter?
There is judgment. There's no question about that.
The judgment of innocence, right? Because there's plenty of innocent people who died in the flood.
How do we innocent by whose standard?
Anyone's standard, man.
And which innocence are we talking about?
You pick whichever one you want, dude. The fact that they're innocent is the only thing that matters.
Wait, right? No, what story are we talking about?
Pick one out of the Old Testament. It doesn't matter.
Sure. Sure. Let's do the flood.
The flood is easy, right? Because you and I can conceptualize that out of the vast millions of people that the Bible claims were killed in this flood, there must have been people who were innocent of any crimes, that they had not done anything sinful.
Sure, but the Bible said that all flesh had become corrupt and violent, and violence filled all the earth. We're talking about something that would make World War II look like a picnic.
Okay, that's what the Bible tells us.
Right.
That's one side of the story.
And we have no other side of the story, because sometimes there is no other side of the story.
I think that there is. I think there are millions of sides to this story, man. Each individual person is a side of this story.
Okay.
Right? So each individual is an actor in this play.
Let me ask you a question.
Shoot.
Do you think it was evil for the Allies to stop Germany in World War II?
Evil?
Hmm.
Evil in what sense?
Do you think it was evil that they did what they did to stop the Nazis from advancing their plan in World War II?
No, but I wouldn't say that it was good either. Engaging in war is generally not a good thing.
No, but I mean, it was a last resort. The only reason the Allies did what they did is because if they didn't, the Nazis would continue to go unchecked.
I guess if you want to assume that the war was in the defense of innocence, then yeah, sure, it was a morally good thing. I don't believe that it was evil.
Well, I mean, this is essentially what's happening, but on a much bigger scale in the flood. God is saying, enough. I can't let this go on anymore. I need to put a stop to this and start over. So
why didn't God intervene during World War II? What's the difference?
Well, see, that's a good question. And the thing is,
that's actually a much more damning. Now that I think about it, it's a much more damning sort of moral judgment there, because that's 6 million of his chosen people who were slaughtered.
Okay, I'm not saying you're playing. I'm not saying you're playing this bait and switch game, but a lot of atheists play the bait and switch. God doesn't exist because there's so much evil, and then God wipes out evil, and then God's a moral monster. Like,
I guess the issue there is the consistency, right? Well, if you're gonna call all of the people who died in the flood just guilty, right? Just you're gonna make that blanket statement.
I can't speak about the innocence and guilt of the people, but I can. But according to the Bible, it was a pretty bad situation, to be putting it very mildly.
Sure, but saying that every single person on Earth, save for Noah and his family, were just like irredeemably evil.
It wasn't even
every man, woman, and child deserved death in that moment by drowning, which is like a terrible way to die, a horrific way to die.
It is. I agree.
So every man, woman, and child in that situation deserved it.
But it wasn't just about what people deserved, but the passage also says that all flesh had become corrupt. That means there was
the flesh of every man, woman, and child. Correct?
Yeah, all flesh had become corrupt.
Okay. How does a newborn child become?
There was angels having sex with women. That was
what does that have to do with a newborn child?
A lot, because that corrupted his or her bloodline.
A newborn child born on the opposite side of the planet. Uninvolved. I'm talking about uninvolved parties to whatever was happening in that area of the world, because you believe in a global flood, right?
Yeah, but the thing is, the global flood was, I know, as ironic as it sounded, was started in an initial isolation that grew out.
Okay, sure, but it was a global flood. You and I can conceptualize of people who may have been uncontacted by God at that point, who had no knowledge of God.
According to data, there was probably somewhere between 2 to 4 million people on the planet at the time of the flood.
According to the data, the flood didn't happen, man. But that's a point. That's a different point. That's a story. I'm assuming for the purposes of argument, right, that your point of view, that what you say is correct.
At that time in history, there was about 2 to 4 million people.
Now spread out over the entire planet, correct?
No. Only on the other side of the world. There was nobody in North America.
Okay, but fine. So
actually, you and
I can conceptualize the existence of a family somewhere in northern Germany at the time of the flood, right?
Sure.
What do they have to do with anything happening in the Middle East?
It's unlikely that
God is pissed off.
It's unlikely anyone was in Germany, but
okay, but I mean, an uninvolved person, right? Because the flood is a response to a specific conflict,
right?
That was happening in the Levant.
If I'm getting drowned because of some assholes, in Timbuktu, that doesn't seem fair, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. That's a blanket punishment for a localized, specific crime involving specific people.
It doesn't.
Why punish
the Bible? The Bible doesn't give the out that you're looking for. It doesn't. It said all there was violence.
That's my problem.
It said the earth was filled with violence. So it doesn't give the out that you're asking for.
I understand that, and that's my problem. Is that I take issue with the idea that God would be justified in applying a blanket punishment on all of humanity.
But all of humanity was all corrupt and filled with violence. So
I would have to see that. You would have to prove that. And I don't know that there's a way to do that, and the Bible makes no attempt to do so.
We're living for a few thousand years after the fact, so nobody can prove that. The historical evidence for it.
The Bible makes no attempt to like prove the guilt of every single person who was killed.
No, it doesn't. But
it seems reasonable to me to assume that at least one innocent person was killed who was uninvolved with whatever was happening.
The Bible is written from observed perspective, so we're only getting snapshots. Like obviously, the Bible didn't write the whole entire the corpus of the entire world from start to finish. I mean, there's that would be like.
But for things as important as this, Rob, don't you think that specificity matters? Shouldn't God have a narrow scope?
I don't know.
In terms of his judgment that only extends to people who need to be judged.
Yeah, that's
why should innocent people die for crimes?
The thing is, how do you know there were innocent people then? You're making the assumption, though. We don't know.
I'm not making assumptions. I'm asking questions about why the Bible makes assumptions.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I don't think the Bible's making an assumption. I think the Bible is.
Well, the assumption there is that all flesh was corrupt, and until you provide for that, it's an assumption. Well, I mean, I'm sure the Bible believes that it's a statement of fact, but I'm not convinced that that's true.
But the thing is, I think when the Bible writers are writing things down, I don't think they're concerning themselves. Oh, I wonder how people are going to think about this 5,000 years ago.
I mean, it wouldn't matter at the time of the writing.
The thing is,
I would have the same objection at the time that it was written.
Right? Yeah, but 5,000 years from now, no, we're not thinking what's going to happen 5,000 years. I'm not even thinking about what's happened 20 years from now. So I think you wouldn't think like that if you were in Moses' position either. So I think your question.
I would definitely. That's exactly what I would think.
If you're in Moses, you think you would write, and by the way, the Israelites were doing this. The Israelites were doing this. You're going to go down to all.
Hold on. But if I was Noah, right, my first question to God would be, why? What makes you think that the entirety of humanity, say for me and my family, are deserving of one of the worst deaths imaginable for a limited set of specific, quantifiably temporary crimes? Right, because these are not ongoing permanent things, right? But you are giving them permanent judgment, eternal judgment, right?
Right. Well, I mean, I think the thing is the speaking of eternal judgments, the salvation where it's very different in the Old Testament than it is now, but I think it works retroactively too. But that's another conversation for another day.
That sounds like a question of theology. I'm not.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned that, so it just crossed my mind.
Yeah, but you do understand how from a neutral point of view, right? Not even as somebody who is like, and it's not that I actively don't believe that there is a God, right? I'm open to being convinced God could appear here and now, and I would be like, okay, yeah, I guess you exist. Mm-hmm. My question is whether or not God then deserves to be worshipped. That's a completely different conversation, right? And that is to do with the transactional nature of what worship is, right? It's spiritual energy that I'm giving you, so I expect a return on that investment.
You will get that. You know what?
I expect it tangibly. I expect it tangibly in immediate.
Like what kind of tangible investment?
Well, the only reward that God offers for that transaction is the eternal life after death, which I'm not interested in.
Well, no, that's not true.
Okay.
He does offer you a relationship in the here and the now, and a lot of things.
Does that provide material benefit to me?
It most likely, almost always does. Most
child of God, demonstrate it. Seeing is believing. Demonstrate it. You have to convince me. You can't just say these things, right?
Yeah. I know.
No, I mean you can't. You have to demonstrate it. It's a loving God, but also a just.
I know.
Any God. I would contend with both of those statements.
He's checking off all the Christian rhetoric boxes.
Of course.
Yeah, and that's fine.
I mean, see his goodness more than his wrath. I don't know that his wrath.
See, he's doing the same thing that bugs me with atheists, making claims that the dumb isn't being it.
Well, I mean, you make the same claim essentially. You have also not demonstrated your God.
Well, the thing is, I can't demonstrate. Like, you're asking for things that are beyond my power. I can give evidences and put induction.
I don't think that that's true.
Pardon?
I don't think that that's true.
How so?
You have access to Christian grimoire. You could prove. You could demonstrate Christian grimoire. Have you heard of the Lesser Key of Solomon?
King of Solomon?
No, the Lesser Key of Solomon. It's a book that has been posthumously attributed to him. But no. it's a piece of Christian grimoire. It contains methods through which to summon entities from Christian esoterica.
I've not heard of this.
You should look into it. But like you do within the confines of your worldview have methods through which to at the very least provide material evidence of the existence of any of these entities. Mm-hmm. And I guess I'll tip my hand in that sense that I'll let you know that if you can do that on our debate on camera, I will concede the debate right then and there. Because it completely changes the question, right? That completely changes the position that I take. Because at the moment, I am unconvinced.
Yeah.
I don't believe that there's anything that you have said or that any other Christians have said to convince me that what you're saying is true. I don't sit here as an anti-theist claiming that what you say is explicitly a lie.
Anti-theism is kind of weird.
It's a dumb position to take, right? It's just as much of a religious position as yours is.
Oh, not more so.
I would say that it's about equally as religious because you're claiming a thing in spite of there being no evidence, and logically saying that there is no God is not.
And this, I don't think this will bug you, but it's actually not my job to demonstrate God. It's my job to be an ambassador for Christ.
I think when you make claims authoritatively, and then you take those claims and then extract policy prescriptions from them, it is your responsibility to demonstrate that these things exist.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I can only there's limitations within the confines of what we can demonstrate.
That which is demonstratable is what exists.
So that what we can't demonstrate doesn't exist?
Necessarily, yes. If you can't demonstrate that a thing interacts with the physical world as we experience it, you have to Occam's razor it away because it might as well not exist. If it doesn't interact with anything, it can't be measured, right?
Well, yeah. The thing is, God does interact, just not in a way that's...
So you should be able to quantifiably measure that, is what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, God communicates through the senses.
The senses are a method of quantification. You can quantify what the senses experience.
Okay, well, I know I guess in that way, I can quantify it every day that I experience God through my senses.
Right, but what does that look like?
Let
me draw you a picture. So
sure.
We can't see air, right?
Well, no, it's immaterial.
It's not immaterial.
Air
is not immaterial.
I said God is immaterial.
Okay, so that presents an additional problem. Because if he's immaterial, well, it presents an additional problem for your case, right? Because if he's immaterial,
being immaterial,
he doesn't interact with the material world. And if he doesn't interact with the material world, he can't be measured. And if he can't be measured,
he does interact with
Occam's razor it away.
I know this is gonna. I know it sounds contrary. It's gonna sound contrary, but I'm gonna say it anyways. God does interact with the material world. He does it in a way that can't be measured.
Well, then he doesn't interact with the material world. Because if he did, it could be measured, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, I can understand why you think that, but in my mind, what you're doing is reductionistic.
I mean, yes, I'm reducing the barrier of entry here. All you need to do is to show me that God directly...
Yeah, but the thing is, you don't get to make the stipulations by how God interacts with the universe.
I'm not making any stipulations. I'm asking you to demonstrate the presence of your God.
Right.
I'm not making stipulations. I'm just letting you know this is how you demonstrate these things.
Right.
This is the standard.
This would be the conditions you place on God for what you would consider.
These are the standards of evidence if we want something that's reproducible, analyzable, testable, and falsifiable.
So what you want is you want God to be scientific, is what you're saying.
I want to be objective.
Well, I mean, what you just said.
And objectivity is reached through consensus.
This word you just kicked off were what we consider scientific. That would be observed, tested, repeated.
I guess if you want to put it that way, it's
no.
part
You
of the
said it,
scientific
man. I'm just
yeah,
laying
yeah.
it.
I mean, sure.
I'm just going full game with what you said.
I wouldn't label it as scientific. I would label it as reasonable. This is, I mean, if you can't individually test and examine a claim, right, and you can't produce the same results every time, it's unreasonable for you to take this position.
Right. The thing is, there's things that I can produce. I can produce repeatedly, but I can't. But I can only. But the thing is, there's a point where I have to do it using induction and experience because that's the only way.
Well, then, but that's not. But then you're not producing anything. You're arriving at an internal conclusion. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right. But I mean,
to demonstrate the existence of a thing, you have to demonstrate.
But the conclusions that I'm arriving at are also based on are repeatable and testable in terms of their results as well.
Right. So my standard of evidence is just provide me with a procedure that anyone, anywhere, at any time, from any faith can perform and arrive at the exact same result every single time.
You're not going to get that result from everyone across the board from every different faith. There's no possible way.
No. What I mean is that's how we determine whether a thing can be like classified as a fact, right? Is when people independently, without needing to cooperate with each other or derive anything from each other, are able to arrive at the same conclusion reasonably, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Like you need a procedure.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying is that if there's nothing to be gathered at the end of that procedure, if there's no quanta there to measure, I don't know that it's a reasonable position to take.
I'm just seeing he left.
He left quite a bit ago.
All right.
Like that's just the standard of evidence if you want to prove that a thing exists, and that applies for anything, right? Like if you want to prove that one of these flags exists, I can send you data about these flags, right? You can't send me data. Nobody has sent me data about God. I should amend the statement before I say something. I put my foot on it. Nobody yet has produced quanta about God. You can't tell me where he is. You can't tell me how big he is. You can't tell me what he's made of.
Yeah, because those things are immeasurable.
Right. And so that's like the fundamental problem is that if you're going to say that a thing exists, you have to demonstrate that it exists before you can reasonably expect people to believe you.
But I believe gravity exists. I can't prove it.
Yes, you can. Absolutely you can. You can measure gravity's effect on things.
Right, you can measure gravity's effects on things. That's true, but it's still a theory in essence.
I mean, yeah, but theory in science means something different than.
I can't see the wind.
But you can feel it. You can measure it. You can put up a windsock and you can see.
Exactly. I can move my arm through space and I can feel the air.
Yeah, you can feel your physical the physical sensation of air whooshing past your fingers. I can't do that to God.
No, you can't.
And that's the problem, right? Is that you're making a fundamentally immaterial claim.
So the thing is, I think you're making a category error.
I know that you would like me to be making a category error.
No, I know that you are making a category error.
What is my category error, Rob?
You're making the category error and saying that basically, I mean, I'm going to use a bit of tongue-in-cheek, but I'm basically saying the category error is you want God to be scientific, but God's immaterial. So on the face of it,
this sounds like special pleading.
Sure.
This sounds like special pleading. You're making a special condition for God as to why he can't fit my standards of evidence, that everything else that I can confirm exists.
But God is immaterial.
Satisfied.
But God is immaterial, so asking for demonstration of a tangible.
Well, but you believe that God exists in a tangible sense, right? Like,
yes,
you experience God, you feel God, you speak to God.
Right.
God has spoken to people. That's a material existence.
Right.
That's physically, because what is sound if not the vibration of waves or the pressure waves traveling across a space, right? So if you hear God and God speaks to you and you speak to God, we should be able to measure the volume of God's voice, for instance.
That'd be cool. I wish I could.
But you understand that the fact that you can't is a problem fundamentally for you.
For you.
It's a problem for your case, because your goal is ultimately to convince people.
My goal is to ultimately point you in the right direction.
What you believe is the right direction. And that requires convincing people.
Sure.
if you're going to claim that a thing exists, you have to demonstrate that the thing exists before you can reasonably expect people to believe you.
I can see how you can think that.
Well, I mean, necessarily, you have to, right?
Hmm.
You have to demonstrate to somebody that God exists before you can reasonably expect them to believe you.
I think. I mean, and this is just kind of. I wouldn't say it's neither here nor there, but it's indicative of the world we live in now. I think we've become so obsessed with proof that we've almost used it as a way, as a gateway of saying, if we can't prove something demonstrably, then the thing doesn't exist. And I think that's fallacious.
Well, why should we believe in things that we can't prove exist?
Well, I'm saying I'm not thinking. See, the thing is, there's different lines of reasoning to infer something. One is just that inference, induction, senses, and like abstraction. Like there's it's not just tangible proof. There's lots of lines of logic and reasoning and induction and
sure,
inference.
But you're not saying that God exists metaphorically. You're saying that God exists literally,
yes,
within the confines of our known reality.
Absolutely, I am.
So if a thing exists, right, it can be demonstrated to exist.
Yeah.
And it should be able to be measured. Right?
Well,
like any other physical thing that exists within our reality, right? It's funny that I can confirm the existence of a star 400 light years from Earth. Something that human eyes have never witnessed, right? Yeah. Based on light that's 400 years old.
But, you can't prove that the star exists.
I can prove that the star existed at that point in time. I'm measuring the light.
But how do you know that what you're seeing is what's there? How do you know that's not some AI project? How do you know it's not some program?
Because I can see it. I can confirm it with data. People on the other side of the planet can look at the same patch of sky.
How do you know that
you're measure that?
How do you know that someone's not hoodwinking you?
Because no, I don't have to trust anybody. I can observe a thing, write down the way that I observed it, and someone on the other side of the planet who doesn't know me and has no reason to lie to me and has no reason
I'm not saying they do, but I'm just saying.
And observe the same patch of sky and see that same star.
But I don't think you apply the same standards for God that you apply to other things in your life.
Why not? Why should
God? I don't know. What I'm saying is, I think you have a higher scrutiny for God's existence. I think you apply harder standards for God's existence than other things that you can't prove.
Like what?
But that you know are true.
What
things that we know are true that we can't prove?
Like what?
Okay, things that we both know are true that we can't prove. I know for a fact that, maybe this is, I'm learning this wrong, but I know for a fact that abiogenesis is scientifically impossible and logically absurd. I can't prove it, but I know it.
I mean, you believe it.
I can't. It's
you
just
personally believe that. Abiogenesis is an unresolved issue currently in biology.
Okay. Well,
it's the most likely candidate for the origin of life, but it hasn't reached that level of evidence yet. You're right.
It never will.
Man, it would have gotten the closest of anything else. I think the only closer thing, or rather, the only other thing that got anywhere near as close would be panspermia, and that's sort of been abandoned by science or by biology. Although it's personally, I think it's far more interesting.
It's the most insane theory I've heard in a long time.
I mean, have you read the research?
No, but just on the
hold on. So you haven't read the research?
Nope.
But you're making a judgment on the validity of the conclusions that research arrived at.
Because it on the face of it, it's just impossible.
But you haven't read the research.
It doesn't matter.
It does matter. How are you judging a thing that you haven't learned about yet? You don't know anything about abiogenesis.
Because I understand the concept of it.
What is the concept?
That life, that we get carbon matter or organic matter from inorganic matter, and there's just no way that you can cross that bridge.
Well, the research would suggest otherwise, which is
the research is faulty and is.
How can you say that if you haven't read it?
Because I just told you I understand the concept.
But you don't understand the research. Like, you haven't seen the procedures that people, like the experiment that I sent you. I can actually find that notification real quick.
Right.
I mean, the paper that I sent you specifically about how amino acids can produce spontaneously. Hold on.
Okay, I will read that.
Well, later. I mean, this is. Well, no, now I'm in it. You've got me. I can just go to the Wikipedia page right now. I will find it.
Wikipedia, really?
Well, yeah. I'm looking for the Miller-Urey experiment, right?
You do know that Wikipedia is like
I'm not claiming this as an authoritative source. I want to get an abstract of it.
Well,
it simulated conditions similar to what we understand prebiotic Earth would be like, and it demonstrated that through excitation, through something like an electric spark, inorganic compounds could form into amino acids. Amino acids can be synthesized spontaneously.
How?
Through the excitation of that lightning.
How's that happen? What's the mechanism by which that happens?
That is a great question. It has to do with the chemical reactions of the specific.
But how does a chemical react if it's what?
Well, chemicals aren't like living things, right?
Of course.
But when they come together in specific combinations,
something to react, something's got to push it to get it started, man.
Sure, and that would be the hypothetical lightning storm that was happening above the.
Well, what caused the lightning storm?
I don't know. Weather. What causes any lightning storm? Weather.
You understand the problem is it's just everything is just kicks the can further down the road.
Yeah. And
that's a problem for your position.
No, it's not.
It is, man.
Things happen spontaneously in nature all the time.
What
are you talking about? Like weather. What? All of weather happens spontaneously. It's outside human control. I mean, it is ostensibly influenced by the movement of specific atoms in the sky, man, but it's not like it's not induced by anything. It's just weather. It happens. The orbit of the planets. It happens because of gravity, right? Because it's just how they formed.
I hear what you're saying.
This necessity that you have for an initial cause is it just I don't understand why you need to.
Let me ask you a question. Do you know of any other case on the planet that you can think of where spontaneous generation happens?
Spontaneous
on its own, without any kind of
specifically, or just spontaneous generation of anything?
Any kind of spontaneous generation that happens on its own.
Well, I mean, technically speaking, matter is not generated or destroyed; it's just reorganized, right? So, generated in what sense?
Like, okay, for example, have you ever known a car to start without, like, a car is a good example of spontaneous combustion, but
it's not spontaneous combustion, first of all, and that's not what we're talking about.
I'll just ask the question. Do you know of any case in the natural world, whether it's any category, electronics?
The Earth could be said to have generated spontaneously.
How?
Because there was no like active mover that caused.
How do you know that?
The birth of the sun caused an accretion disk, or caused matter to be flung out sufficiently far, right? And gravity did its thing. And these are just forces that they don't exist in a discrete sense. These are yeah, there's tons of scientific papers on the origins of the Earth.
Papers and proven evidence are not the same thing.
They are mathematical. Well, I probably shouldn't put my foot in my mouth here, but because I'm not a subject matter expert in astrophysics, right?
Yeah. Nor am I.
But it's this qualification of spontaneous generation, like assuming that the default state is for things to appear non-spontaneously, which I guess that sounds like a value judgment.
Sure.
I would say that everything that happens on Earth is essentially spontaneous in terms of like nature.
I would disagree, but that's a conversation another day.
Wildfires are spontaneous in the sense that we don't cause them, right?
Okay, we've been going for about an hour and a half now. I'm kind of tired, man, and I want to get some rest.
Yeah, man. Sorry
my battery's getting super low too, so it's probably good time.
You're good. I'm looking forward to talking to you some more, Rob.
Okay, I'm going to download this. I'm going to put this on, throw this on my YouTube channel.
Absolutely.
And I'll DM you as soon as I get it processed.
Yeah, for sure, brother.
So Ken, if I could shake your hand, I would. Let's just do high five.
Let's high five. Hell yeah, brother.
It was a pleasure talking to you,
Absolutely.
sir. You have yourself a wonderful day.
You as well, man. Take it easy.